Let's go ahead and get underway here. Make sure our slides are working. All right. So first and foremost, make sure we've got kind of all the cell phones and distractions off because this is going to be a fairly intensive hour. We are trying to cover some basic stuff, and I want to keep it nice and simple. But I want you to be paying attention to this because if you kind of go through this formula and this framework of how to interact and how to look at Google Analytics, it'll make using the thing a whole lot easier. The other thing to take a look at here is the Q&A, which some of you have already figured out how to use, which is great. So in that little area, you should see this thing that says, questions, enter question for staff. That's how I can see all these little conversations happening back and forth. So as you have questions or as you want to give some sort of feedback, that's where you want to put it. So right in that, you'll see that there. And let's test. So real quick, what are you here for today? I mean, are you looking for, we obviously this is kind of like an introduction to Google Analytics and the 4 different questions, and we're going to go through those for sure. Let's kind of show you how top marketers are using it. But is there anything specific offhand that you know for a fact right now that you want to make sure is covered today? Like, is there anything in particular? How to set goals? Okay, that's a good one. We'll be covering some of that for sure. Let's see a little bit around event tracking. We'll talk about that. That's a little more advanced for this one. What are people spending the time doing on the sites? That's a good one, Karen. Yep, that's a really good one. So we'll talk about that. Trying to figure out where to better spend my marketing dollars. That's a really good one. So we'll help you out with that. Okay, good. Yeah. So everyone's kind of there. The whole point of this webinar is mostly because if you're like many of the marketers that are out there today, you've installed Google Analytics, but you've just never actually done anything past that, right? That's all you really did. Now, there's a setup that's required to sort of open up and unlock a lot of the features that Google Analytics can give you. But because you never really know you needed to do that, you probably never did. So we're going to talk about some of those steps today in your interacting it. The whole thing is it's not your fault. And I know it's kind of like a marketing thing, like, oh, it's not your fault. But it really is true because Google makes incredible products. I'm so happy with the products they make. But they just completely forget to create user manuals. They're horrible, horrible user manuals. They're out there, but they call them developer guides because they're really written by their developers for developers. And it's really hard to find this information sometimes. Now, once you've set up Google Analytics, and this is our goal for the webinar today, when you set it up, you're going to know to be able to answer questions like, number one, who are my visitors? And these are 4 key questions that you want to make sure you know. Who are my visitors? Where do my visitors come from? So basically, how are they finding my site? What actions are my visitors taking? And then what are the results of those actions, right? What are the results of my visitors' actions? That's what we're going to go over today. Now, this is going to be something you can use even if, and this, of course, the best part, you're not quite like a numbers person. So if you're not a numbers person, that's totally cool. We're going to cover this, keep it really general. All right, so first, who am I? For those who don't know, my name is Chris Mercer. I do go by Mercer. So if you see me at a conference, it's much easier to be like, Mercer. My story, real quick. So we started with WordPress. I started creating a membership site around teaching people how to do WordPress. That all of a sudden led us into beginning building the websites for others because people were asking us like, hey, why don't you start your own web dev company? So we did. And then we learned this thing called Google Analytics. And what that really happened was my own curiosity as we were building out client sites. I wanted to see what was working, what wasn't. And the only way to really do that was to measure it. So we learned Google Analytics and we started letting clients know how they could do things like tracking ads, tracking their goals, tracking their funnels, their sales funnels. And of course, more of the fun stuff that analytics can help them out with. And pretty much what happened almost overnight is clients stopped asking us about their WordPress sites. They weren't like put this often form. Like they didn't care about headers anymore. They didn't care about what the blog looked like. All of a sudden they cared about Google Analytics, and that's all they were caring about. So we really moved into that. And over the past few years, we've shifted our business entirely to analytics and optimizing for the insights that those analytics provide, which brings us to today. Now, very recently, you can only work with us if you were referred, which is true. We kind of started at an agency level, and we've moved down to kind of the do-it-yourself stuff, which is what we'll talk about here, and trying to show everybody how to do this. Private clients spend thousands of dollars a month to work with us, and being a private client, and this is just sort of where, as we built the company, as we built the company up, we realized that being a private client shouldn't be the only way that you should get access to what we know about this, and that's why we created Seriously Simple Marketing, which of course brought many of you here today. So that's where the kind of the origin story of this whole thing. And of course, creating webinars like this. So let's chat about you real quick. Now, this is going to be in that little chat room and the little chat area there where the Q&A is, the questions are. And just let me know, are you coming from the perspective of e-commerce, or are you coming from the perspective of a sales funnel that you're kind of your business model? It tends to be primarily one or the other. I'm just kind of curious who's in the room now. Are you looking more toward figuring out and tracking e-commerce stuff, like you've got an online store, or are you going through sales funnels? So I've got a sales funnels, inbound generation, lead generation, sales funnels, leads. Okay. So anybody e-commerce? There's an e-commerce. Thank you, Leah. All right. Okay, so Leah's representing the e-commerce side. All right, both of you are going to learn. I'm going to gear. Oh, there we go. Another e-commerce. Perfect. So it's probably about another sales funnels, roughly maybe 70-30 right now. So that's right. Fortunately, both groups will have some access to this. The other thing I'd like is what do you already know about, how well do you already know is really the best way to say this. How well do you already know Google Analytics? This is a scale of 1 to 10. So 10 being you should be here behind the mic teaching me some stuff. That's what 10 is. And 1 is you didn't even know what Google Analytics was until you saw this webinar. And you're like, what's that? I think I would have learned that. So scale of 1 to 10. So a couple of 2s. Couple in the middle with some 4s and 5s, 3-ish. I like that. No more in theory than actually doing it. Shauna, that was really good. 3s. Okay, so nobody's higher than a 5 so far, so that's good. Okay, yeah, so a lot of 2, 3s, and 4s, a couple of 5s that are out there, and looks like most people are, a couple a little higher than 5, but most are less. That's good. Okay, cool. So this is going to be right in line with what you're trying to do. So during this event, we're going to talk about the same secrets that we actually use for our client sites. And that's the whole point of this, is so that you can use Google Analytics to start finding some hidden profit and get your own insights from the data. One of my favorite ways of explaining Google Analytics to somebody, and this is just kind of like what people think it is versus what it really is Google Analytics is like, people think, number one, that Google Analytics is, I'm going to go to my analytics and my analytics is going to tell me exactly what to do next. And that's not likely to happen in a lot of cases. You need to figure out the insights. There's interpretation that's required from the data. So the data, sometimes it'll be a little more direct than others. But most of the time, what Google Analytics is like going to a fortune teller and having that fortune teller tell you your fortune in a riddle. Like, that's kind of what it's like. And so you get data, but it's kind of like, I wonder what this means. And you have to interpret it. And that's where the insights come from. But when you set up your analytics properly, you can get better quality insights where the riddles just aren't as hard to figure out. And that's where you can start directing your marketing a little more. So again, 4 main questions we want to talk about, and make sure these are the ones that you're focusing on, because you have to know this. In order to be a really, really great marketer, these are what you got to know. Who are my visitors? Where do my visitors come from? What actions are my visitors taking? And then what are the results of my visitors' actions? Those are the 4 questions. When you figure that out, that's some diagnostics that you can start tweaking some things when it comes to your marketing. So let's talk about that very first one. Now, the very first thing we're doing, I'm going to do a little screen share here too to show you where these all are, is the first question. Who are my visitors? That's what you're going to use the audience reports for. Okay, so who are my visitors? What is that about? That's where you're going to find insights like, where do my visitors live? What kind of interests do they have? What devices are they using? Very important around mobile versus desktop, and a few more things. So let's go ahead and in there, and I'm going to show you what this looks like. I'll pull up my screen here. Okay, so these are the audience reports. I'm going to make this just a little bigger for everybody. So these are the audience reports. You can see them right here. I'm just clicking on audience, and this is the one that is the default report. So when you first come into your Google Analytics, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be loading this page. And this is the audience overview. Now, overviews are decent. We don't really use them to get insights from. This is just it literally is just an overview, right? So we don't use it a lot for insights, but it gives you a basic idea of kind of what's going on and some general trend lines. What we really like to do is dive into these reports, all right? And these are the reports we're going to be talking about, at least some of these. So this first thing we talked about, okay, who are my visitors, right? You're trying to figure out where they are. Well, in demographics, you've got a couple of things you can take a look at. You've got age data, and then you've got gender data. So age and gender. Now, how does Google know this? The way it actually does this, and this is something that you would require a little bit of setup. So if you don't have this set up, you would actually just go into your admin section under your property, and there's an area where you enable this. And Google will walk you through this. So if you come to this report and it shows, hey, there's nothing here, you need to set this up, just click on the button. It'll help you set everything up. But age and gender. So this is coming from Google with DoubleClick. So DoubleClick is Google's ad network, and it's constantly tracking everything just like Facebook is and LinkedIn and everybody else out there. And it's collecting all of that data. So they know, generally speaking, how old somebody is or what their gender is. And it'll pass through that data to you. So that, again, in aggregate, it's not going to tell you an exact person, but it'll pass through that data to you, so you can kind of get a little more details as far as, generally speaking, what the age and gender are. And that might make sense. So if you're, for example, advertising to a group on Facebook that's maybe 18 to 24, and then you find out when you come to your site that maybe your buyers are just 35 to 44, all right, or higher, maybe 45 to 54, and that's where the buyers are, then maybe the 18 to 24 crowd isn't your crowd. And you can verify that sort of stuff in Google Analytics by building out segments and showing where that is. And that's where some of this stuff starts to happen. So that's all about kind of age group. You've also got an interesting report here under other interests. Now, interests, I'm going to give this this is a great thing, but I like Facebook better. I'm just going to be honest about it. Facebook, let's face it, they know everything. Google knows a lot, but Google is kind of hush-hush about what they know, I think, in a way. They keep most of it behind the scenes. They're not sharing it with everybody. Facebook's kind of like, yay, everybody share the data. And and they do with their insights reports. So their insights reports on Facebook are just much more intense when it comes to what you're going to learn. Google, though, will come up with some pretty interesting things. So you can scroll down on the report here. We're looking at affinity categories. So what this basically says are people that visit your site are also likely to like things like this. That's all that is. So the affinity category is people that like your site are also likely to like things like this. And it kind of, puts them through for you. So people, in our case, for searches of marketing, technophiles make sense. They like watching movies, they TV, probably a bunch of Netflix bingers on there. They're taking photos, reading news. So it kind of gives you an idea of maybe some other areas that you could target if you were trying to open up different markets. The other thing, which is also interesting, is in-market segments. This is a little more powerful. And this particular report tells you what other things they are currently looking at to purchase, right? To take some sort of action on. So in this case, employment, business services, advertising, marketing, travel, hotels, software. These are people that come to our services. And evidently there's a lot of single people out there because they're looking for dating. But these are the things that they're actually spending money with according to what Google Analytics knows. And they'll tell you, which is pretty interesting. So pretty cool little thing. And then, of course, they've got a little other section here. So with other things that are out there as far as how kind of other more general categories are applying. But affinity and in-market are really your two to kind of give you a little more detail about the people and who they really are. Now, again, we'll use this, but very quickly we mostly go into our Facebook and look at insights there because that's huge, but it is there. Now the big one is geo. So geo targeting, you can do this by language and location. I'm just going to click on location for sake of time here. So in location, you can see pretty quickly where people are. And what's cool about a lot of these reports in Google Analytics is you can drill down. So as you click, like in this case, I click on United States, I can see the top states coming through. As I click on to California, it'll break it down into city. And so you can see exactly kind of where everybody is within the particular state. Now, how is this helpful? Well, you could build remarketing lists off of this. You might find out that your buyers, maybe you've got lead gen campaign going on, and you find out most of your lead gen comes from, let's say, Texas, but the majority of your buyers are coming from California. So maybe there's something there that you can kind of tweak your marketing on. So like I said, this is not going to give you an exact answer of what to do, but it will give you some insights where you can go, that's interesting. I didn't realize that maybe San Diego was doing a lot more than what San Francisco was doing. So maybe I should put some more money down in San Diego. Like, and in this case, it makes sense for us in particular because Austin, Vancouver, San Diego, these are like internet marketing hubs. There's a lot of online entrepreneurs that live in those cities. So it would make sense that we probably have a little more of an impact there than we would maybe with the startup world. But if we did startup advertising and we were targeting, the startups that are in San Francisco and kind of going after that, I would expect this to go to a deeper blue and we would see that in our advertising. So pretty interesting stuff. Now, the other things you can take a look at, new versus returning. This is one of those things that you can find out. So who are new visitors versus returning visitors and how much are they worth? So you can kind of get an idea of what that looks like. Frequency versus recency will just tell you about how many times they've come back to your site. And then you've got things like user ID that you can set up. Now, this is something that's more complicated than what we have time for today. But basically, you can track in users that are logged in or users that you've got a contact, some sort of ID for, so that you can tell. And it's a really cool feature because you can tell somebody that went from their smartphone to maybe their laptop to their tablet at work Google Analytics, if you're setting up user ID tracking properly, it will track all of those together as one person. So it doesn't show like it's three different people, which typically it would. So user ID is definitely something to take a look at. And again, it's all over who are my visitors, which is what this whole audience thing is for. Under tech, you've got browser and OS. This is a really nice one. Why would you use this? Well, you would use this because you might set up a goal and you might figure out like, hey, everybody that's using a particular browser, like we had a client once where we did a little setup for them. We were going through an audit and they did Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Internet Explorer, just like it is here. That's kind of the order most things are. And they, on their Internet Explorer, like they had no e-commerce. So in fact, you can drill down. I'm going to do this. I'll show you. So Internet Explorer, it'll pull up the versions now of Internet Explorer. And they had some goals firing through on the higher level versions, but 8 and below, there was like nothing firing through. Right? No conversions were coming through. And it was weird because this is a high traffic site. So you would expect there'd be conversions. And so what we did is that gave us this clue. Again, it's not saying like this is broken, go fix it, but it's saying there's something you might want to check out here. And so that's exactly what we did. We loaded it up. We pulled up Internet Explorer 8 and we pulled up the page and it looked horrible. Like the CSS was freaking crazy. So when that happened, that's when they realized like, wow, we're losing a bunch of sales because it was actually quite impossible to figure out how to buy something because everything looks so screwed up. And you would never want to buy something from that company because it looks so screwed up, only on that particular browser. But that's where they figured this out, was using that sort of report. So that's kind of a cool little thing. Now, let's skip ahead a little bit. So mobile, these are the different devices that it'll track. So you can actually see, okay, what are Apple versus Samsung? What type of are they really on it? Like, especially in the Android world, there's a lot of different products out there. Well, you actually know, are people using Samsung? Are they using LG? Are they using HTC? Are they on a Note, right? Which is a bigger screen size than maybe some of the smaller ones, but it's really neat what you can do here. And then you've also got, let's see, overview. This tells you desktop, mobile, tablet. So under your devices. So you can kind of see how many people are coming in through desktop, mobile, and tablet. And again, with things like user ID tracking set up, you can actually go through and combine some sessions together. So it'll give you a little more accurate viewpoint of what's going on. So all sorts of fun stuff that you can get through the audience reports. So again, if you have questions, you can put them in. We're going to cover all of those toward the end, just so we can kind of keep up with time here. But that's the audience reports. So to review, audience reports are all about who are my visitors. That's how you answer that primary question. Who are my visitors? And you're going to get insights like where do they live? You're going to get insights around what their interests are, what devices they're using. And again, you can see it's specific devices. It's not even necessarily mobile versus desktop, but it's which mobile. Are Apple people very different from Samsung, buyers, very different from LG? You can find some interesting insights there. And more things like we talked about the new versus returning and everything else that it can do for you. Now, the next question is, where do my visitors come from? Okay, where are they coming from? This is all about the traffic, right? How are they finding my site? That's what we're going to use acquisition reports to answer, okay? Acquisition reports. So where do my visitors come from? That's things like what sites are sending visitors to me, right? What sites are sending them over, which ads are actually working. And you can actually get to a point where you can track very specific ads. And I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes here. Which social media sites are working? Is it more Facebook traffic? Is your LinkedIn publisher campaign working better? That sort of stuff. And of course, which search engines? We can break that out too, and a ton more. So let's go ahead and show you acquisition reports. I'm going to flip back into my screen. So we're going to close out the audience. I'm going to open up acquisition, okay? Acquisition, all about where my visitors are. So under acquisition, the easiest way to take a look at this is jump into this all traffic report and you go into source and medium here. It says source/medium. Now what this report will show you is a breakdown of what traffic is coming to you and from where it's coming from in a very general sort of view. So in our by default setup with Google Analytics, and I'm going to explain this a little bit, we've got Google Analytics will track 3 things by default. It will track if it's organic, and you can see here it says Google Organic. That's our search traffic. So that's your SEO. Anything that's organic is SEO. And if it's organic, it'll say, in this case, Google Organic tells me it came from Google, but it'll also have Bing Organic or Yahoo Organic. So anything that's organic in the medium section, again, kind of found the pattern where it says source and medium. Organic is the medium. So that's search traffic. And that's all it is. Now you'll see underneath that it says direct none. What direct none is it doesn't know. Like that's really the short answer. Another way to think about it, people say, oh, well, that's just people that directly came to your site, which is also true. But it's really, the way to think about this is it's untagged traffic. Google doesn't know where they came from, so it's just calling it direct or none. It doesn't know. And it could have been that somebody typed something directly into the browser bar, or they have you bookmarked. It could have also been that your email traffic wasn't tagged properly, so it didn't know they came from email. So that sort of stuff happens. But that's direct none. And this is really the biggest culprit of a lot. Now, you're always going to have a lot of direct none traffic because it's just a lot of it is tough to tag. But it shouldn't be your number one. If it is, it's probably because you haven't tagged a bunch of stuff, which, I'm going to show you how to do that here. Now, underneath, the third thing I want to show you that's a medium is called referral, okay, which is very at the bottom here. It's number 9 if you take a look at referral. Referral is the third thing that Google Analytics will automatically track for you. You don't have to do anything to set this up. And in our case, it's coming from Facebook.com. So we know it's Facebook referral traffic. So what's the difference, you might be asking, between number 3, where it says Facebook CPC, and number 9, which says Facebook.com/referral? Well, the referral traffic here is Google saying somebody came from Facebook. Maybe somebody shared something, or they clicked on a link somewhere that wasn't tagged some other way. And it knows they came from Facebook, but it really doesn't know specifically where or any other details about the traffic. It just knows that they came from Facebook, something at Facebook. And it could have been maybe one of you shared one of our posts that linked over to us, right? So there's something like that. That's a referral. But this Facebook CPC traffic, and this is pretty cool. So I'm going to drive down in here or drop into the link as I drill down. So you've got source medium. Well, what's cool about this is we've tagged this. Okay, so Bryce, who works with us, set up a Facebook campaign, and he was doing some Facebook paid advertising. And so we said, okay, well, how do we want to tag this? How do we know it came from this campaign? Well, we're going to call the source Facebook, and we're going to call the medium CPC, which for us is cost per click. So we're just totally made these up. We can call them whatever we want, but that's what we call them internally. So Facebook CPC. But here's something else that we did, which is kind of cool. So we've also added additional parameters in the tagging, so I can do stuff like this. So now instead of seeing, okay, I had 371 sessions that were brought in by this Facebook CPC, I can break it out and say, okay, well, this was a checklist, right? Where the ad was referencing something about the short code. Then we've got another checklist where there was a buyer's lookalike audience that was embedded there. There was one that was advertising today's webinar. We've got, something that was on the fan page, right? So we know the source was fan page. So there's all these different things that we can do. And you can see the webinar traffic. There's a short copy with, a tiny bit of copy to it. We've got one that was web visitors copy with computer image, web visitors copy with a cycling image. So we know specifically what specific ad they came from. That's super powerful because we can have a goal associated to this webinar and say, okay, the goal was opt-ins to the webinar. How many of these ads related to opt-ins? And instead of just looking at it from a CPC, like a Facebook CPC perspective, we would break it down into a report that looks like this. And then we would go against our goals, and we might find out that, hey, you know what? The computer image sent over a ton of traffic, but nobody opted in. Whereas the cycle image sent just a little bit less, but more people opted in from that. So we're going to pump up that campaign quite a bit. So that's just a few of the different things that you can use this. And you can tag your traffic, which I will show you how to do. And that's how you get that sort of customized result. I'm going to back up here and show you the other tagging. So now this is custom tagged. This was Traffic and Conversion Summit. This was traffic that I got. I was doing a talk at Traffic and Conversion in 2016 around the Google Tag Manager tool. So we were doing that, and I put a link out there, and people could click on that link. All right, not really click on it, but they could type it in on their phones. Since I was actually speaking. Now that's really hard. Now how do you track somebody to know that they came from people that were sitting with those butts in seats, right? That's really hard. Well, I did that with this UTM tracking technique, which I'll show you in a second. And now I know that those people that came to my site came from me, from Traffic and Conversion, from my outreach that I was doing working there. We've got our own emails set up, so Infusionsoft emails. And then this is just mistagged traffic, so we're going to have to find whoever did that email. But it should be Infusionsoft email. And again, stuff like this happens. This is kind of what you do. Traffic and Conversion Summit. This was somebody who actually came to our site from a link that Traffic and Conversion Summit had on their site, which was great. Go to webinar. This is in fact, the link that you'll see today, a little bit later on, will show this. And you'll see this in action where it'll tell Google Analytics, it'll say, okay, they were on a GoToWebinar and they came from the webinar, and the webinar was about this, so that I know who's coming from what webinar and what's working and what's not. And then, of course, we've got some guest posts. This is a really great way if you're doing guest posts. We've got some guest posts over at Digital Marketer. And so what we have there is a link. So when you click on the Learn More About Mercer link over at Digital Marketer, it will go to a specific page on our site. And that page has got UTM tracking codes on it, so that I know that they came from digital marketer from one of our guest posts, as opposed to digital marketer / referral, right? So instead of, I know exactly which link they clicked on, which is really kind of cool. So that's just some examples about tracking the specific traffic. So you've got other things you can do to set up. Now, this does require some linking, and we don't use AdWords quite yet, so we don't have this, but you can put your AdWords and link your accounts in there, and then all of your spend and buys and keywords and everything else flows through there, and you can find some pretty cool things around AdWords. So if you are using AdWords, make sure you link those too. And again, Google will have some instructions on how to do that. Other cool things, you've got search engine optimization. This is a popular one. So what are people clicking on to find your site? So we find lots of people. We've got 2 articles that for some reason just do amazingly well for us. One is around people that are asking about digital marketing versus traditional marketing, or traditional versus online, or whatever. And the other one is about clickbait headlines. And so we've got one that's like, don't use clickbait, and here's what the headlines are, and here's some examples of some clickbait, and you don't want to use these, and here's why. And that one's super popular. And we've got this other one that's like an infographic between digital marketing and traditional marketing. That one's also super powerful. These other things here, the ones that say not set, just to explain this real quick, this basically means it's not that Google's hiding the information, it's that there's not enough data around a particular word for it to mean anything to you. So basically the way to read this is like, there's, a couple thousand people looking for clickbait headlines, another couple thousand that came looking for clickbait examples. And of those, and there was 23,000 other phrases and words and stuff that weren't relevant enough to group together. So as an example, it might say something like, one of those not set words might be clickbait headlines in Texas on a Wednesday. It's a very long tail keyword that not a lot of people are typing in. So instead of listing it on there, Google just sort of groups it and calls it not set. But you can see here at the bottom on this report, there are 2,000 phrases that Google's giving you where you can see exactly how they're finding you on a search engine. Now, in this case, it's only Google search engine, right? Which is fine. That's what we really care about, because it doesn't have access to Bing and Yahoo and everything else. But that's plenty. That's 2,000 different phrases. So you can see how people are seeing you, how many times you were shown to them, where you ranked, what the click-through rate was. It's pretty cool what you can do. You can also see the landing pages they hit and a few other things. So that's search. And then we talked about social media a little bit already with traffic, but you could do the same thing here. So you can create your social media relationships, pull all that together, and that'll show you kind of who, where people are coming from and which social networks, which is always fun. So next up, let me show you some fun stuff around traffic. Let's talk about how to track it. Okay, how to track your traffic. Now, this is how specifically to tag your external sources of traffic. It's something called the URL builder as a tool, and I'm going to show you that. Now, this is not that hard to find. You just go to URL builder, and you're just going to Google it. And what you will find is Google will be number 1 for that. So you're going to click on that. And when you come down, if you scroll down on this page, I'm just going to make this a little bigger for everybody. As we scroll down on this page, you're going to see a form show up. So let's say I wanted to set up a form to direct to Seriously Simple Marketing. So the first thing I would do is I just pull up the site as our main homepage. I'm going to copy that out, and I'm going to put this here in this little website URL box. Okay, so there's our domain. Next, let's say I wanted this to show up as let's pretend I was doing Facebook traffic just to the homepage, which you would never really want to do. I want to do it to a specific lander, but let's say that we were doing it. I would type in Facebook. I would then type in the campaign because I'm paying for the traffic. I would say CPC. And the term, let's say I was doing this for blog traffic. So in our case, and when we really do, in fact, let's do that for real, because we do that a lot. We go to the blog, and we have one on setting up e-commerce reporting and tag managers. That's a blog post. So let's copy that out. There's the little Workshop Wednesday invite I was talking about. And I'm going to put that in there now. So there's our URL, okay, that goes specifically to this blog post. And I'm going to do a little Facebook boosted traffic. So Facebook, CPC, because we're paying for it. The blog traffic, we've got campaign content is what we typically use this for is differentiators. So I might like audience is, 25 to 45. Something like that. I might do location is, let's say maybe we do a news feed, right? So I'll call it the feed. And then maybe we put in there something that this was on the fan page, right? That tells us that we posted it on our fan page. Actually, I'm going to blog this out. Sorry about that. Campaign name is where we're going to put blog. Okay, that's the overall campaign. The term is where we're going to put, like, what we use it for is our headline. So either the headline, if it's an ad, or the subject, if it's an email. So we might say something in the headline like, check this post out, something like that. And so all of these different things will be added to this URL, and they're going to be tagged. So Google's going to know, it's going to look for it, it's going to know that that it's working. So let me show you what this looks like. So you click on this little generate URL button, and now you've got this long URL. So here's our first, and just to break this down for you, here's our first little bit here. This first part right here, this is just the blog post. That's all it is. After that, you see where it says UTM source equals Facebook. That's Google's going to see that. Google Analytics sees this and says, okay, well, I know now the source of traffic is Facebook, and that's what puts it in the source. Then it says, well, what's the medium? Well, UTM medium _ medium equals CPC. That's how the CPC gets in there. This is where the term is. And this is, in this case, our headline. This is the contents. This is where all that little miscellaneous stuff comes from. And then this is the actual campaign. So in this case, we've got blog. And I'll show you this. Like if we go into campaigns of our traffic reports, again, we're back into acquisition, and I click on campaigns, and I go to, let's just say all campaigns. You can see the different campaigns that we've set up. So there's one for Seriously Simple Insights. We've got one for blog traffic. We've got one for Workshop Wednesday. We've got a redirect campaign. There's all sorts of these different things that have been set up. And that's how we do it, is because, let me get back to the URL builder, because we put these parameters, this entire thing, on the end of this. Now, one question I'm going to handle now, because I get asked this a lot, is whenever I show this, people think, okay, well, now I have to go to this URL builder tool and I have to use this all the time, and it somehow like registers my URL with Google. It's nothing like that at all. Not at all like that. This is just a tool that literally takes these pieces and inserts them in the proper places for you, so you can copy this out. So the magic happens when you actually go to the page and it's got all this stuff loaded. And if you check out like your emails, when you go to email and you look at these, you'll see these. When you click on a link, you'll see people using these. And you can see how they're actually tagging you, essentially. So you can see how they're doing it. But these parameters, I could just, if I delete these out, I could just as easily, and actually I do this a lot personally because I use these all the time, I could just as easily say, okay, UTM source equals go to webinar. And the UTM medium equals, and you can see at the top where I'm typing here, UTM medium equals webinar, because it's, that's the method. And the UTM campaign equals, let's call it Seriously Simple Insights. And I can type in the term and the content and everything else. And I can put all of this in there. So you don't really have to register anything. That tool, that URL builder, is there to kind of help you with the formatting. But once you understand the formatting, you can just type them in directly. And then you can tag all of your external sources of traffic. And I keep saying that word external sources of traffic because that's the key point here. I would, if somebody's on an email and they're coming to my site, that's external. If they're on Facebook and they're coming to my site, that's external. If they're on a webinar and they're coming to my site, that's an external source of traffic. But if they're already on my site, right? So for example, if you came to this blog post and I wanted to, let's say maybe I had a banner ad here for one of our products. If I put UTM parameters on that banner ad and change the link so it has those parameters, it will replace the traffic source. It like breaks the session and it messes up all the reporting. And the reason it does that is because you're already on my site. So I don't need to keep tracking traffic sources. You're already on my site. And if there's a number one mistake that people use with putting all of these different UTM parameters on their URLs, it's that they put them on links that are already on their site. And again, when you do that, it will mess up your reporting. So if you are doing that, you want to get rid of that. So that's kind of the basics of tracking. And again, pop in as many questions as you want. So I want you to make sure we're getting all the answers, but we'll cover those at the end. So keep doing that. We're already seeing a bunch come in, which is fantastic. So we'll keep those going. All right, so that's the URL builder. And to review again, acquisition reports overall, they answer, where do my visitors come from? And that's where you're going to get insights like what sites are sending me visitors, what ads are actually working. And again, the best part is what specific ads are working, which social media sites are sending me traffic, which search engines are sending me traffic, and of course, a ton more stuff that we can get it from there, especially around AdWords if you're doing a lot of paid traffic there. Next up, behavior reports. So behavior reports answer what actions are my visitors taking? And this one you're going to spend quite a bit there. So what actions are my visitors taking? So that's going to be things like what posts are they actually reading? What links are they actually clicking on? What pages can't they load? Right? Kind of what pages might be broken. What type of content are they asking for? Like all sorts of cool stuff there. So let's take a look at what that looks like. I'll pull back up our page. And we're going to go now into under acquisition, you see behavior. So again, behavior. What actions are my visitors taking? If you're asking a question around that, you're going to find the answer somewhere in the behavior reports. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly for sake of time here. But the first thing is under site content, you've got all pages. You've got landing pages and exit pages are kind of the main things. All pages will tell you every single page that anyone has ever seen on your page. Anything that's got code on it is going to light up here. Landing pages are the first pages that they see, and exit pages are the last pages that they see before they exit your site. That's really all that shows. So if you click on landing pages and you wanted to, in all pages, and you wanted to see kind of what the pages were that people were visiting, you can do it by traffic source, by unique page views here. It's automatically ranked, right? We've got all this information that's coming through here. And you can see, okay, this is the ones I was telling you about before where we were super popular. Traditional versus online marketing, clickbait headlines, the good, bad, and the ugly. And then, of course, our main homepage. And you can kind of see some other things around different webinars and things like that we're doing for Workshop Wednesday. So this kind of gives us a really good idea of what posts are popular generally. I can click on landing pages and get an idea of which posts or which pages are popular from the very start of the session. So a lot of people still coming in from, traditional versus online, good, bad, and the ugly. And let me show you something even more fun. When you start combining these, I'm going to click in here and I'm just going to drill down. So now I'm just seeing the traditional versus online marketing. And you saw me use this before. It's called secondary dimension, but I'm going to type in here source medium. And when I add that secondary dimension, I can now see the traffic sources, the very specific traffic sources that sent traffic to this page. So a bunch from Google, but I also got a bunch from Bing. I got a bunch from Yahoo. I got some from Ask. So the page is doing okay from an SEO perspective. And then, a few others, kind of miscellaneous sites out there. But it kind of gives you a really good idea of like, how are people finding me? Man, that's how they're finding me. And then what pages are they viewing? Wow, they're viewing this one first, right? I can also see exit pages. I bet you it'll be pretty similar. So they are coming on, and this is pretty interesting for me because I can go through and say, there's a lot of people landing on traditional versus online marketing, and they're also exiting on traditional versus online marketing. That tells me that I probably should optimize that page because they're either not finding what they want, or maybe they do find what they want, but there's nothing else of interest, right? And there's some different things on there. So I would myself slap some measurements on there, maybe do a heat map, take a look at the page and see how I can adjust the story that's on that page to better match the audience, give them what they want, and then move them down into a logical next step of either engaging more with our own blog or maybe taking action like signing up for Workshop Wednesday or something along those lines. But that's where you would find that. So again, pages, what pages are they seeing, what posts are popular, all that sort of stuff is all in site content. Now, site search, this is super useful. Again, this is something you would have to set up. But when you come through here, you see this sort of stuff. And people don't realize this can do this, but you can actually go through. I have no idea what best drag would be, but somebody searched for best drag on our site. Email marketing versus traditional marketing in simple language. Facebook pixel, filter, Google Tag Manager, GTM, which is also Google Tag Manager. So if you come through here, what this is doing is this little search box, which admittedly is not really something that we feature prominently on the site, but it is there. Whenever somebody searches for something, Google Analytics will take that. Now, this is separate from organic search. It's separate from a search engine because they're not using a search engine. They're using the WordPress site to search for something. And so what this is telling me, and what's really cool about this report, this is the user, this is the visitor who's coming to my site saying, hey, I need to look for something, right? And I'm looking for this. And this is, then you see obviously there's some weird stuff because everybody can type stuff in, but like, why is restaurant there, right? But you can do things, again, combining them like, okay, let's find out where the restaurant guy came from. Could have been a gal. Let's take a look. So direct none, so untagged traffic. Somebody could have been something, just typing something in. But it's interesting because you can see like when we first did this, we had a lot of, traditional versus online marketing and clickbait headlines. And we were doing stuff like that. We were doing a lot of them. Like we did hundreds of those types of articles. You only saw 2 that actually worked. Hundreds were out there. And what we found was that when we did the search term thing, there was a lot of people looking for more stuff around Tag Manager, filters. Like this is a Google Analytics term, for filters, Facebook pixels, doing really more targeted things around Tag Manager and analytics and tracking things and optimizing things. And so when we learned that, we started creating products and we started guiding our posts more toward those specific topics. So that's how we use this. But it was useful because we knew what specific actions somebody was taking on our site. They were looking for something and they told us what they were looking for, which was great. So that's just an example of search terms. Now, something else that's really cool is event tracking. This also has to be customized, but you can do some pretty cool things. Like we set up a timer that fires after somebody's on the page for 30 seconds. We know if somebody came in from the outside, if they clicked on a link that was on site or if they went someplace else. Then we know if they downloaded something. We do split testing with Visual Website Optimizer. So Visual Website Optimizer will send in some details and let us know which test they were on, so we can tell which one's working. There's some really cool things you can do. So that's event tracking. And then let's see what else. Experiments is here. I'm not going to really cover this again for the sake of time, but this is where you can actually do some split testing if you wanted to with Google Analytics too. So you've got that. I think that's about it from the high level perspective. So let's go ahead and pop back and continue our journey down. So again, behavior reports, what actions are my visitors taking? That's where it's going to show you like, hey, what blog posts are popular, right? Which ones are they reading? Which links are they actually clicking on? Which you can do with event tracking. Which pages can't they load? Let's talk about that. I'm going to show you this because this is a cool thing. If you want to talk about like, wow, I can actually do something with Google Analytics. If you come down here and you go to all pages, so I'm in behavior reports under site content, and I go to all pages, and I click here where it says page title. And I'm going to do this real quick. I'm just going to mess up my URL so I know it'll 404. So there's a 404 page, okay? And what I'm looking at is up here at the top what it says. So in this little tab at the top, it says page not found -- simple marketing. Chances are your site does something similar. So what I'm looking for is this page not found. So I go to pages and you see the page titles here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in this little box. It's called a table filter, page not found. I'm just going to type that in there. And there's our page not founds. So you can actually go through and see the page not found pages. And as I go through and maybe click on that, again, to drill down, this is all the different pages. These are the different pages that are 404ing. So with page not founds. So pretty cool little tool. And it'll tell us like, hey, we've got a redirect issue that's going on here. So if somebody on our team was on this call right now, this would be something very important for them to go take a look at and say like, hey, we got a lot of people trying to get to a sales page, which is 404ing. So there you go. The little course for Simple Analytics, which we have for 1,000. We had a 404 with the 1997 one too. So there you go. Okay, so we'll fix that. But this is where you find cool things like that, right? This is almost an example of Google Analytics saying, hey, go fix this. It's not super direct because you have to do a couple things to get to it, but you can see how useful this is. Even somebody like us, we're going through, we do this for a living for clients all the time. And then we come through on a webinar and see like, okay, great, we got sales pages that are 404ing. Let's fix that. So some pretty cool things to take a look at. All right. Next up are going to be under our conversions reports. So let me bring that up real quick. So we talked about, of course, the behavior and what people what actions are visitors taking. That's all about behavior. Conversion reports are, now that you know all the different actions that people are taking, what are the results, right? What are you really getting from all that? That's what conversions are all about. So in these reports, you're going to figure out like how many leads you're getting, how many purchases people are making, the sales funnel performance, like how your sales funnel's doing, and a bunch more stuff. So I'm going to show you this. And this is definitely one of those reports where it can get really complicated, really fast, and it requires you to really be using Google Analytics fully. So if you're not tagging your traffic, just as an example, if you're not tagging your traffic, that's where you start. You make sure you tag your traffic. Because if you're not tagging your traffic using those little UTM parameters that I was showing you earlier, these other reports aren't going to be as useful. So that's one of the big things. But let's talk about conversions. So in conversions, you've got goals. And these are the goals that you will set up, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. And underneath the goals, it'll this overview report just sort of tells you like where people are completing the goals. And then you've got funnel visualization report. And I don't actually think I have many that are funnels in this particular view, so I can't show you that, but it's basically it'll show kind of a bunch of different steps here where you might say, hey, they go through a lander, then they go to the cart or to the sales page, then they go to a cart, then they go to upsell 1, upsell 2, and then they finally hit the thank you page. And you'll see kind of a vertical funnel that Google will build for you out of that, and that's where you would see that. Goals would be things like how many opt-ins am I getting? You could technically do a goal around a purchase of a particular product, all that sort of stuff. E-commerce, again, something you would have to set up, just like all of this, basically this entire section. But under e-commerce, you can see specifically what products people are buying, and all that sort of stuff. So you've got all that. And in there, you can also do some more advanced stuff around behavior and checkout. So we don't use this that much because we're not e-commerce. We're sales funnel based. So we don't do a lot of like, oh, they left the checkout process and whatever. So, but you can with e-commerce. So those of you, I know there was about 30-40% of you that were e-commerce. There's something called enhanced e-commerce that you could set up on your site. There's starting to be lots of plugins around that too. And that will show you some of that cool stuff. So you'll have all that. Multi-channel funnels, this is definitely more advanced, but I want to show it to you because it's kind of cool. This will tell you what assisted in a conversion versus was the last click in a conversion. So when you're looking at your typical reports and you go to Google and you say, hey, how did my Facebook ad with the puppies do versus the one with the kittens? And Google will say, oh, well, one, brought you $1,000, the other one brought you $500. What that's really showing you is who last clicked on that ad. In other words, Facebook traffic was the last known source of traffic before they purchased. That's what they call last click. But what if your Facebook campaign is for opt-ins, for lead gen? And that gets them in the funnel. And then eventually they buy because of an email. Well, that is Facebook's assisting in the process, but it's never going to get credit for last click. So it won't, Google's not going to show you by default how much sales that Facebook created because it didn't really create any last click, but it's also not meant to. So if you're running an agency for clients and you're trying to do traffic and trying to be like, hey, this is really working, it's useful. One of the things you can do is you can set up your traffic and tag it so that again, specific Facebook traffic's coming through, and you can show, okay, this Facebook traffic assisted. It wasn't responsible for the direct call to action. That was probably an email or something, but it assisted in a bunch of different purchases, in addition to last click. So you'll see stuff like that. All the fun stuff you can do here with time lag and path length is basically like, how long it takes people to come back over and over again before they purchase, or how much time they have to spend. And then you can do attribution reports, which I'm not going to show, but just so you see where they are. Underneath attribution reports, it'll show you how to, if you want to compare a different attribution, I'm trying to say this in a different way without complicating it, but basically, do you want Facebook that first touch to get all the credit, or would you rather the last touch get all the credit, or is it somewhere in between when it comes to your marketing budget and spend? So if that doesn't make sense to you right now, like forget I even said that, doesn't matter. For those of you who are kind of like, hey, how do I prove all the different channels and how it all works together? That's what you want to look at, is under attribution and model comparison. So again, definitely more advanced. So you should be at least 7 or an 8 before you even start looking at this. But if you get to the point where you're 7 and 8, that's where you start really diving into these things here. All right. So with that, I'm going to go back and then let's talk about some goals. So we're going to talk about setting up. Now, once you got your traffic set up, you want to set up goals. So let me show you how to do that. It was also one of the questions earlier. So if I go into admin and I come down here, you've got a little goals section. And you can see we've got some goals all set up, with the different opt-ins. I'm just going to pull this one up to show you what it looks like. This is an opt-in for Workshop Wednesday. So what you would do is you just basically give it a name. And if you could just click new goal, this essentially looks the same. You'll come in here, you give it a name. In this case, we just call it an opt-in for Workshop Wednesday. And there's 4 different types of goals. So a destination is basically if they land on a URL, it fires the goal, which is what this one is. So if they land on our thank you page, it fires the goal. There's duration and there's pages per session. We really don't use these a lot, but you can use them for engagement if you wanted to. So duration might be somebody spends, like an example here, if they're more than 5 minutes on the page, great, we're on the site. Pages would be if they've seen maybe more than 3 pages. So you might use that if you're a content marketer, you're doing a lot of blog stuff. Those would be goals around that. And then event goals, they have to be set up outside of analytics, whether you code them, custom coded, or use something like Tag Manager, but you basically can do things. And that's where we said, visual website optimizers sets up our goals automatically, or we automatically know when somebody clicks on a certain link. Those are all events that we tagged earlier. We could use those events and connect them to a goal. And that's how you would do that here. But for the most part, destination is what you're going to start with, especially if you're kind of the 2, 3, 4 with Google Analytics. Start with destination goals, which is what this is. So we type in the name, we choose destination, and continue. And then what you would do is you would fill in what it is. So in this case, pages that contain this phrase in the URL, which is our thank you page, anytime that happens, it'll fire the goal. And you can see here, we turned off the value in the funnel. We turned off the value here because we fire e-commerce data on our own. So we want to use that data. We want to arbitrarily add to it so that we really know the true dollars and cents coming from Infusionsoft in our case. And the funnel, if we wanted to, you could set up a funnel. This is where you do it. So if I wanted to have somebody, I'm going to kind of keep this real basic. It wouldn't be exactly like this, but just to kind of give you the concept. You might say like, okay, this is my landing page. And so if they go to, / landing page, and then you add another step, and that might be so let's pretend the landing page is the sales page. Then they go to the cart, and that might just be called cart page, whatever it's called. And you would add another step. And then after there's, upsell 1, and maybe there's no other upsells after that. Okay. So you would put this funnel in there, and then the final step is always this thing here. This is something I've seen as a mistake that people make is they build a funnel and they think it's kind of separate from this. So what I see is funnels that look like this. So they might think like they're tracking their thank you page, right? But they actually put it here and here. And so that is what breaks it. So you never do the final step on the funnel. It's just everything leading up to the final step is what you want to do. And then the other thing that you'll want to do in almost all cases, there are a couple of cases where you wouldn't want to do this, but really almost all the time, you flip this to yes. Because what this will do is it will show you only the people who came through the landing page, then to the cart, then to the upsell. And the last thing I'm going to say about this report, this particular feature, I should say, of this report, the funnel feature, is this only works for the funnel visualization report. And I'm going to show you again. I'm going to open up another tab, jump into analytics, and I'm going to go into behavior, under goals, because this is all about what are the results. And I go to funnel visualization. This is where that shows. Okay, this report is the only place that shows. And so whatever you set up here in this goal setup is what shows here in this report. This part is kind of disconnected in a way from all of this. So what happens is you might see Google tell you, hey, 1,000 people triggered this goal because they came to this page. And then you might go to your sales funnel report that you have set up here, this little funnel visualization report, and it might show you only 100 people came through the goal. Well, what's happening is that funnel visualization report is using just this part, and that's it. And the other standard goal is using just this part. So it kind of works on its own, and then you have like this little enhanced view of the goal through this one particular path if you wanted to set it up. So if that makes sense, and again, any questions you have, we'll go over that. But that's essentially how you do that. And I'm going to walk through just real quick. If you were starting from scratch, go to new goal. I actually just skip through all this stuff because it doesn't really matter which ones you do. So I just click on custom, go to continue, type in my name, test goal, and then choose destination. You can skip this little goal slot stuff. You don't have to worry about it. Whatever shows in there, shows in there. Go to continue. And then I would type in, okay, equals to, and let's just say, I want it to be something that had my thank you page, right? So whatever my thank you page is, it's whatever the URL is, you put it in there. And then if I wanted to set up the value, I could. If I wanted to set up a funnel, I could. If you don't want to set up e-commerce, you can put in a value there. If you want to say, hey, this is going to be $10, $1,000, whatever. You could put it all in there. And then again, funnel if I wanted to. And then you could actually go through, this is nice because they didn't used to do this. It used to be you had to set the goals and then wait and see if they were right or not. But now you can verify the goal. So this is going to show 0 for me because this page doesn't actually exist. But you can actually go through it. If you think you've set it up correctly, hit verify. It goes back to like your 7 days worth of data, and then it pulls it and says, oh yeah, it would have worked for this many people had you had it set up already. And that's how you know it's working. Then of course, once you have it all set up, you just click save. And then at that point, your goal becomes active. So it's a very, very, very cool little tool. All right, so that's our little quick tour around goals. So with goals, remember you can track specific pages, things like thank you pages, whether that's on an opt-in or maybe a product fulfillment page, a membership login, all sorts of stuff. How much time visitors spend on the page, how many pages they view during the visit, and then specific actions like sales funnel steps. And as an example, it might be if you have a sales funnel where it's upsell, and if in the upsell, it doesn't matter if they accept or decline, they both go to the same downsell. Like that's such a pain to track in analytics because the URLs are the same. And what a lot of people end up doing is they create all these different URLs out there to try to track it, which you can do. But if you use event tracking, you will know if they actually clicked on the accept button or the decline button, and then you set a goal to that using event tracking and the event goals. And that's how you track specific actions. So just kind of as an example, but it's really cool to be able to do stuff like that. Okay, so with, again, conversion reports, just kind of bringing it back, we've got insights like how many leads that you're getting. You can find out how many purchases people are making, the sales funnel performance, ton of more stuff that you can pull from that report. We're going to be jumping into Q&A for a little bit, and we've now covered the 4 questions total. So again, who are my visitors? Where are they coming from? What actions are they taking? And what are the results of those actions? So go ahead and start piling in those questions because we're going to come to that in just a second. First, I've got a question for you. How are you doing so far? Are we feeling kind of like this? Because tends to be what happens. We kind of get started on this, and people are like, "Oh my God!" Like it's either I didn't know analytics could do that, or like, "Holy cow, there's more to this than I thought." A little overwhelming. But just remember, analytics, Google Analytics, is just like any other skill. You just pick a little piece, just pick a piece, and you do it one step at a time. So for you, it might be you're not tracking your traffic, and again, if I had to pick one thing, that if you have it all the basic stuff set up already, and that's the thing, learn to track your traffic, all external sources of traffic. And when you do that over and over again, it becomes natural. Then you move on to the next piece, right? Move on to the next step. So the more you use, like any other tool, the easier this whole thing will get. Of course, it is helpful to have a guide. So we've created a program that's called Seriously Simple Insights, which some of you may already know about. But Seriously Simple Insights basically is a combination of two different programs. One called Seriously Simple Analytics, which you saw on that sales page that we had off. And then we've got another one called Insights Live. So what this is analytics is the Simple Analytics program. It's like a reference library of 40 bite-sized videos. There's a ton of stuff in there about Google Analytics, and we are adding more to that and updating that pretty much constantly. You can download them all, so if you're offline, you'll be able to see that, especially if you have a slow internet connection. And we've got MP3s as well, so you can do that. The videos cover, again, all aspects of Google Analytics, and specifically everything from covering, the initial setup the account to getting the right data, into the right format so you can actually read it and make some useful insights. They're going to show you how to do custom reports, which we didn't talk about, but is a huge thing. Dashboards, where you can kind of get at a glance dashboards and see what you need at your fingertips. You've got videos that'll show you how to track sales funnels, everything from the ad to the sale, okay, from the cradle to the grave, so to speak, so that you can actually know what your return on investment is and have analytics give you that viewpoint. They help you to stay future-proof because, again, we are updating these all the time. And we've got a module that we're releasing under Google Tag Manager, which is a brand new tool. Not brand new, it's been out for a couple of years, but it's going to be a new module, brand new module for this. And a lot of people are just starting to catch on to Tag Manager. So if you haven't used that yet, you want to start thinking about that for sure. And the video library, of course, is just the start. Because when it comes to analytics, there are going to be times when it can feel overwhelming. The same thing happens with us. Again, we do this professionally. We do this all the time. And this tool can quickly overwhelm you. So we've got lifetime email support. If you've got a question, just ask. It'll go into the email. You've got access to our Facebook group. There's a ton of us in there, along with peers, right? People like you that are using this thing, trying to figure it out. And we learn just as much sometimes from them on certain things as they're learning from us. Like, it's a really cool group. Private coaching clients spend about $4,000 a month to work with us for help. And that's kind of why we offered this program initially for $2,000. Because we're like, okay, this is a one-time payment. It's $2,000. You can kind of learn it on your own for people that didn't have the budget. And we did that for a while. But what happened is, in setting up the Google Analytics, when you're setting up your tracking on your own, trying to find the insights you need in the reports, trying to figure this whole thing out, trying to even figure out what are the questions you should be asking, right? That's half the battle. What questions should I be even asking? When you're doing that, it's helpful to talk it out with an expert. And so what we did is we created a whole new level of this hands-on support, and that's what we call Insights Live. So essentially, it's weekly online group coaching. That's what this is. So every Friday we get together. It's around noon Central. And we get together, and whoever wants to show up can show up. If somebody's got a question, you can ask. There's a whole separate thing. So if you can't show up live for whatever reason, you can still get your question answered and watch the replay later. But it's really helpful to show up live and share screens and walk through, okay, hey, this goal isn't tracking right. Like, all that sort of stuff happens. So you share your screen, you talk out whatever it is that you need, and you get the answers from experts, experts that In this case, I'm on there most of the time, and other members of our team are on there. And that we sold for $497 a month. So that was kind of like a recurring thing that we did. So that's group coaching. So we had these two different programs. We had analytics, which we were selling for the $19.97. We had the Insights Live that was at the $497, and we combined them into Seriously Simple Insights. So again, analytics was $19.97, Insights Live was $497 a month. We combined them into Seriously Simple Insights, and that's where we get this total value of $2,494. So it's around $2,500 worth of value. You get unlimited access to the SSA library, email support, the Facebook group. You get 30 days of Insights Live, which is the group coaching. So we'll give you 30 days of access to that, so you can actually use these things, get questions and share screens, and really, really understand how to do this. Now, because you're watching this now, of course, you're the kind of person who wants to get the insights that Google Analytics provides. And we want to have people like you as part of this program, because if you're not taking action on it, frankly, it's not a lot of fun for us either. So to make it even easier for you to start, obviously, you're not going to pay $24.94. We're not going to reduce it down to $19.95. We're not even going to reduce it down to $9.95. We're going to keep it at $4.95 total, and it's a one-time payment. So again, for $4.95, you will get Seriously Simple Analytics and the 1 month of group coaching total. So now, is there a guarantee? Yes. You got 30 days to go through it all, go through every video. You can ask as many questions to email support, pop in the Facebook group, Facebook group all the time, get ideas from whatever you want, go through every coaching call and get as much help as you want. Don't care. Like, take advantage of this program. And if at the end you're not convinced it's worth every single penny, no problem. Send me an email, I'll refund it. No big deal. But if you are thinking, this is a question we've gotten before, if I need more group coaching after that first month, like maybe I'm not gonna be able to get as deep as I can this first month, what do I do then? So we do not automatically renew Insights Live because it is a pricey program. So we don't do that unless you ask us to. So we're gonna send you an email that says, hey, it's running out. Do you wanna renew it? If so, great. If not, that's fine too. But you can purchase it additional if you want it at the $497 per month retail. However, the whole thing here is if needing more help and support is a concern to you, if that's something that you're kind of concerned about, then to make this even more of a no-brainer, when you purchase this today, we're going to extend the Insights Live group coaching to 3 full months. You're actually going to get 90 days of group coaching, which is plenty of time to get in there and play around for some stuff. And again, at the end of 90 days, if you wanted to, you could totally extend this. But it gives you this $1,500 value, 90 days of group coaching. Again, we do not automatically renew it. So it'll run out at the end of 90 days. If you want to go forward, you totally can, entirely up to you. But you got 90 days to play around with this with group coaching and work with us to help set up your site, get answers, and help you get some good insights. Now, this bonus, again, is available just because you're choosing to get started today. And so now the whole thing, we've got unlimited access to the analytics video library. You've got updates as they become available. You've got lifetime email support. You've got access to your Facebook group. And now 3 full months of Insights Live, which brings us, pretty close to around $3,500 in value. Technically, that's $3,488. So we're about $3,500 in value. But instead, it's $495 one-time fee. That's it. One time, that's it. Get access to everything. So if you're ready for the link, let me give you one other reason here. If you sign up, but wait, there's more. If you sign up before this webinar ends, you're going to get a complimentary one-on-one private insight session with me. So I will sit and we'll get on a Skype call or go to meeting or whatever it is, and we'll hang out for about 30 minutes and I'll go over kind of where you are and maybe give you some good insights as to where you can go forward to get everything set up. So kind of consider it like a fast start or quick start, but we'll go over what it is that you need help with. So 30 minutes insight session with me. That is only for people who are on the webinar, and you must sign up before this webinar ends, because when the webinar is over, that particular bonus goes away. That is not false scarcity. That is because I am a busy individual and I do not have a ton of time. So I only want to keep it to people that are on the webinar. So once the webinar is over, that deal is also over. Okay, now, if you are ready for that link, here is that link, ssm.tips/SSI promo. So again, ssmtips/SSI promo. And when you type that in, you're going to go to a page that'll look something like this. I'm going to bring this across here. It'll look like this. So this is the page itself, kind of give you a little everything I basically talked about, a couple testimonials from the guys over at Digital Marketers, one of our clients. So you can kind of see all that fun stuff. Now, what I really did this for, what I really want to show you is this. So I'm tracking, right? Because we want to try to eat our own dog food, so to speak. So I'm going to go back into our slide. There's our slide, right? ssmtips/SSI promo. This is just a short link that we set up. Where that short link actually goes, though, is it goes to this page. This is our sales page. And then you see all this tracking right here? This is the stuff we talked about earlier, UTM tracking. So I now know that it came from a webinar that we did, obviously a webinar. It was for the SSI campaign, Seriously Simple Insights. It was a short link that they clicked on or typed in this case. And then the content was March 2016. So I knew that it was a webinar that happened in March 2016. So that is pretty cool. While I'm thinking about it, to make it even easier, I'm going to put this in the chat. So again, bring this back up because obviously not everybody wants to sit there and type everything in. So ssmtips/SSI promo. Again, same thing. I just clicked on it, takes you right to this page. You can see all the UTMs in there. So that's how we know kind of what's working and what's not. And that's how you can track traffic from a webinar to see if they purchase or what stage of the funnel, did they come through Facebook and did they attend our webinar and did those people see the sales page? That's how we know all of that because of using UTMs. So again, I want to emphasize, please use UTMs. They're awesome. Okay. So that's it. So again, $495 for that program. The 30-minute session does end when the webinar is over. So if you are interested in taking advantage of this, please do that now because I don't know how much longer this is going to go. We're going to answer Q&A and take it out. And it is only $495 for all of it. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into some Q&A. All right. Next. Okay, so I'm going to scroll. There's a bunch in here. Okay, I'm going to scroll through some of these. Okay, will there be audio and slides sent out after the webinar? Yes, we will be having a replay that will be sent out probably in the next day or two. We'll do the replay. So if you need a little review on this, I won't have the slides sent out because most of the stuff is really just related to the sharing of the screens, but the replay will be there for sure. There's a recording. Yes, there will be a recording. Okay, perfect. So we got that one. That's actually a really good thing I should add to the front part of this webinar too, just to let everybody know that. All right, what is the difference between e-commerce and a sales funnel? It's a really good question. So the e-commerce is basically like your online store, like your Amazon.com, where you can fly back and forth and you choose a product and you add it to a cart. That typically is e-commerce, when you're adding something to a cart and you can go back and do more shopping and you can remove things from carts. That's all e-commerce. And a sales funnel would be more like you can do this action and then this action and then this action. So an example for us would be you go from the webinar, which is like kind of the step one in our sales funnel, to ssm.tips/SSI promo. And then from there, you go to our sales page, then you would go to our cart, and then you would go to a thank you page after you purchase. So that's kind of like the sales funnel model. There's one thing you can do, one action you can take, and it's not adding to a cart and then going back and adding more or removing from cart or any of that stuff. That's kind of the biggest difference, at least in my mind. Let's see. So somebody asked about a little pop-up that was popping up on some of our data saying there's an error in the data. So let me see if I can get that. That was somewhere around audience reports. And I'm not sure. I think she's talking about this. So right here, some data support may have been removed or a threshold was applied. So this is basically like we set up, again, there's some advanced stuff you can do with analytics, things called filters that change what the data looks like and can filter out some things. And that's all that is really telling us, is that there's some of this data may not be all of the data, but it's still useful data. So this doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just means that it's letting you know, like, hey, this has been adjusted a little bit. And so you'll see things like that when you start using some of those more advanced features. And it's just there to remind you that some of that, I'm hoping that's the right error message that you were talking about. But that, and Katie, if it's not, just let me know. But that's generally what it's speaking to, is like, hey, you've customized this, just so you know, we're giving this data through your customized filters. Let's see, which was, okay, got a lot around theory versus doing, which was great. Thank you. I'm glad that you got that. What does UTM stand for? That's a popular question. So UTM is actually, this is trivia. This is total trivia because it doesn't matter, but it's cool that you're going to know the answer. Urchin Tracking Module is what that is. And it's because Urchin was the original company that created this analytics software. And Google bought Urchin back in the day. And they renamed it Google Analytics, but it used to be called Urchin Tracking. And so they had UTM, Urchin Tracking Module. Talk about legacy, right? The name lives forever, but that's what it stands for. And it doesn't matter that you know that. It's kind of cool to know. Someone asks you, you have an answer to it. Okay, so Angela was asking, can I touch more on benchmarking, but I'm not sure specifically what that means. So if you can give me a little more details around what you're looking for, that would be awesome. Or are you talking about the benchmarking report? Maybe that's it. That's probably what it was. Okay, I'm looking back in the time. It was right there. So this is the benchmarking report. I'm kind of like, this is the stuff where I really like Facebook more than I like Google, because Facebook is sneakier, is the probably proper word. They are sneakier when it comes to tracking stuff. They track everything. And with Google, sometimes you have to tell it certain things, and you have to know that you're telling it certain things for it to track effectively. And so what benchmarking does, benchmarking is this new thing that came out within the past year, some 6-8 months, something like that. And what it is you set up your property and you tell Google, I'm internet and telecom, or I'm a hospital, or whatever. And you can benchmark your site against all the other sites that are using Google Analytics and are letting Google benchmark their site, that collect the data. So it's kind of like, here's how you're doing compared to the rest of the world in your area. Or here's, so that's where these little verticals come from. Now, the challenge with some of this is these are really general, right? And it just, because they're so general, I think for most marketers. Now, if you're e-commerce, this might be a little more useful sometimes, but you can see kind of it gets somewhat specific, but it's not. It's all based on the fact of, and I'll show you where this is. If you go to admin, actually, I think it's under account. Yeah. So when you set up your account, no, it is under admin. Sorry, property. So for this property, you go here and you set industry category. This whole thing only works if you have this defined properly. Because if you're not defining it properly, like for example, could I be business and industrial markets? Probably. Could I be computers? I might be. I might call myself that. I might also, let's see, what else could I call myself? I could call myself, is there education? I could call myself education, right? So there's different things here that you could do. And the problem is I'm then benchmarking myself with other people that are also kind of doing it. If they even did this, they might just all be choosing the first one and be under arts and entertainment because that's what they all call themselves. So I don't, I get the idea behind it and I like that they're doing it, but it seems like that might be not as useful. Like in our company, we have a phrase called the useful truth. We always look for the useful truth. And I don't know that this really provides a useful truth versus what I can do to go to Facebook and get a real snapshot of, hey, what are other people doing? And Facebook will tell me these people, people that like your site also like People Magazine and they watch House of Cards and they do this. Like it goes into all sorts of detail because it knows. And Google is kind of a little more reliant. And it really is because Google is afraid of the creepy factor. They don't want to be the creepy uncle who's watching everything, right? And Facebook is like, hey, I'm the creepy uncle. It's fake, but everybody loves me because I'm a fun drunk. Like that's Facebook. But Google is not like that. Google's kind of paranoid. So they want to make sure that you keep using them. And so they make a little harder to get information from them. So I think the reports aren't as useful, but that's essentially what they are. You're comparing yourself to those in your industry. That's what a benchmarking report does. And again, it might be related, like in your industry, maybe everybody really does pay attention to that. Most of the sort of ADD marketers that we work with, that doesn't happen at all. So that's, but that is a really good question. So thank you for asking me about that. All right, so that was benchmarking, and let's see here. Okay, so show in real-time reports when you've entered in a tagged URL, GA says is a visit from the source and medium. So yes, in fact, let's do that now. So that's a good question. So I'm going to go into real-time reports. Now that's a section we didn't talk about, and that's because it is the most dangerous section in Google Analytics because it's mesmerizing. So this is the real-time reports. And what these do, these are only really used for testing. Okay, that's all they're really used for testing. So if you go into real-time reports, you can see what's working and what's not. So I'm actually going to go into traffic sources here. And I want to see kind of where our traffic sources are over the last 30 minutes. And you can see we've got people that are coming in direct none, right? We've got people that are coming in through organic, so Google organic. And I've also got some webinar traffic coming through, which is good. Yay. So some people coming into the sales page. So that kind of gives me an idea of like how this UTM source stuff works. Now, if you wanted, you can go through and you can test it. So if I come through here, and I'm just going to show this to you, because this is again how you can test it. This is our main sales page. So I'm just going to do, this is just to prove the point again that you can do anything you want. So I'm just typing it in. I'm going to do test, test, test. Little side note, all you really need is source, medium, and campaign for it to work. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to copy this out. Just going to close this out. Open up a new browser. And now I'm copying in with Series of Simple Insights, UTM test, medium is test, campaign is test. And what we should see here, with any luck, is there we go. So I go to my active users and I can see test and test. That's where you can see source medium. So I know for a fact that it's tracking the way I think it's tracking. That's how you can really test it. That's a really good question, but that's how you use the real-time reports. And you can do it with goals, and you can do it with event tracking and everything else. All right, where is the best place to put your search bar? So, for us, we put it in the upper right-hand corner because we wanted it noticeable, but I think you could also put it in the top of your header. I think that's not a bad place at all for it. So basically upper right is kind of where I think most people go. With all things though, there isn't a here's what you should do and this is the only way to do it. You should just test it. So if you really wanted to test engagement around your search, you could split test different places of putting it. Generally speaking, I'd say it's probably going to be upper right. That's where most people are looking for it. But again, you could always test that. That's a good question. So for events, do you need to set up things with GTM first? So that's a great question, Shauna. So technically the answer is no. But my recommended way of doing it would be to use GTM, because Google Tag Manager, that's GTM, Google Tag Manager. Google Tag Manager makes tracking events like 1,000 times easier, right? We do analytics for a living, so I know that's measured. That's got to be accurate. It's at least 1,000 times easier. But it really is. It's so much simpler to do it. You can technically set up event tracking in Google Analytics just kind of by itself without using Tag Manager, but it requires changes to the code. So you have to go into the link itself and you have to add a bunch of parameters to the link. And then if you ever wanted to change it, you got to go back into your code or have your developer do it and change it. But if you use Tag Manager, you actually just go in the Tag Manager and you say, hey, whenever somebody clicks on this link, just send this category and this action and this label into Google Analytics as an event. And that's it. And it makes it so much easier. And if you ever need to track it or change it, you can totally do that. So I would, I guess, say, if you have the option, if you're thinking about Tag Manager, go that route and use Tag Manager to do that. So setting up a goal. So a couple people asked about UTMs, which we answered, which was great. And how do we use the UTM, or how to use the URL builder? So with tagging, again, you use the URL builder is not required. It's something that we talked about just as a way for you to sort of help do it on your own, right? So you don't have to use this form, because all this does is assemble the things, right? So it takes the source and it takes the medium and it takes the campaign and it puts them all in the right spot and it calls them the right thing. That's all this does. But you saw how I just typed in test, 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 and it also works. And I just typed it in. And you can do the same thing. So you don't have to use the URL builder, but it does give you an idea of how it works, and it can help you get a little more comfortable with the concept. So that's that. So $4.95 for everything. Yes, $4.95 for everything. So that's one time. That's it. Nothing else gets sent back. And you get 3 months of the coaching plus the coaching session, the 30 minutes. Okay, for the funnel, what if a visitor goes through other pages between the ones we've listed on the goal funnel? That is a great question. So Jeremy's asking, so what are the different pages? So I'm going to flip back into analytics here. So I'm going to try to explain this. I don't know if I have, you know what, let's do this. I think I have an old funnel that we set up a long time ago for Digital Marketer. And we've done a little guest webinar for them way back in the day. I think one of these goals is still here. Oh, let's see. It may not be anymore. Okay, there we go. So this is kind of gives you a better idea of what the funnel visualization looks like. And I'm going to show you what the back end of this goal also looks like so you can see how it was set up. So let's see, which one was this? This was bought offer and upsell. And so I go to bought offer and upsell, and I'm going to edit the details. So this is what it looks like. So first, for this example, they had to go to a page that contained this, thank you-u, which for us meant they contained an upsell. And they bought the upsell. Then we had another one, I think it was like thank you-D for if they didn't, right? Or if they bought the downsell. And in our funnel, we had them go through a sales page, which was test. Then they had to go through an upsell page. And then they had to go through to the thank you page, actually accept the upsell. And that's what this tracks. Number of people who saw the page, number of people who did the upsell, took the upsell in this little fake test, and then the number of people who actually bought the upsell. And so what we did is this shows you, and kind of why we set this up, we see that it's required here, right? I set this up as required. The reason we did that is because if you do that, it will show you everybody that came to the offer page and where they came from, right? So in this case, most people just showed up on it. That's what entrance means. These pages are other pages they came from in order to get to it. And then we've got where they left. So if somebody left the page without going through the upsell, you could see where they left. Some people just exited, which means they closed out and left the site. Other people went back to the homepage. Other people went back to the, to test and other tests we had running at the time. So they could see all those different things. So it kind of tells you where they go through. You'll notice here under upsell that they don't show that. It doesn't show kind of where they came into to see the upsell page. If you turn off the required, you would see this number. There would be people here that saw the upsell page. Maybe they went directly to it, or maybe there was another sales funnel that was feeding it. You would see that sort of stuff here. But you still see, and this is why I like keeping it required, you still see people going to other pages in between the funnel. And that's where this automatically will show you that. So if you turned this off and just made it, instead of required, turn it to no, and that's it, and then save your goal, you'll start seeing people coming. You'll start seeing these middle sections fill out. And so you can still build your funnel and kind of say like, hey, these are my main core steps. And maybe you don't have a sales funnel directly where they go from page 1 to page 2 to page 3, but you want to track, are they seeing a blog post, any blog post, right? And maybe all of your blog posts contain /blog in them. So you could make that a step 1. And then from there, do they see any of my opt-in pages? And that might be a step 2. And then from there, do they, book something with me, right? That could be your thank you. And if you did that, you're making the funnel kind of general, like it's tracking major steps using destination goals. And then you keep the required tracking off, and you'll see all the in-between steps that people will do. And then generally speaking, that probably will still give you a useful truth. I'd have to see your specific situation, but it probably will still help. So I hope that helps out. Let's see. So biggest repeat customer. So this is especially true with low traffic sites. She's asking, so I'm the biggest repeat visitor, right? So I'm the one who's coming back over and over, and I'm skewing my data. So can I exclude devices from being tracked? Worried that since you don't have a lot of visitors, obviously that she's kind of messing with her data. So there are lots of ways to help you with that. That's a really great question. One is you could create a filter, which is more advanced. So I don't want to go too deep into this because it's in the weeds, but you do a filter, and you can filter out things like, let's see. So if I wanted to go into predefined, let's say I want to exclude, and then you could type in specific ISPs, IP addresses if you happen to have an IP address. Subdirectories or host name used for companies a lot. And you can get very specific on this. You can flip this to advanced and go way into detail here. But I would say for what you're trying to do, what might be faster and easier for you, and this depends where your traffic is. Like let's say if you're in Austin and you're a local business focused on getting people in Austin and everybody's in Austin, it's going to be harder to do what I'm about to show you. But for the vast majority of you on this call, I'd venture to say that this following technique is going to be useful. So I go to locations again, right? So I can go into, actually I'm going to go into, I'll go into locations here. So I'm currently on our site, I believe, yes. So I'm going to go to the United States, and actually it's not me. Oh, because I've timed out. Let me do this. I'm going to go back into our site. Okay, so now I've got 2 visitors, United States. There's Pflugerville. That's me. Okay, that's where I am broadcasting from right now, live from Pflugerville, Texas, which is technically just north of Austin. That's why I say Austin. It's like 5 minutes away. Okay, so I'm going to click on Pflugerville. So what I could do is I could say I want to create a segment. And this is what I would do. Like if I'm you, without having to mess with filters or get too deep into it, unless you're comfortable with those, then go for it. But what I would do is another more advanced thing, but it's called a segment. And I'm just going to click some of these out. So I'm going to go into audience. I'm going to go into, let me get these out. I'm going to go to acquisition, all traffic. Actually, I'm going to do behavior. It'd be easier to see. Behavior, all pages. Let's pull up the all pages report. So I've got my all pages report, but I just want to see people that are not from Pflugerville. So what I would do is I would create a segment, and I'm going to do this fast, but this is just to show you what it is. So you create a segment and say, not from Pflugerville. And then I can go through here, and I'm going to just skip all this other stuff. I'm going to go to conditions, and I'm going to type in city. So users of city that does not contain Pflugerville. And then that will pull, and I'll flip it to like users. So that'll pull up all the users who are not Pflugerville. That instantly basically filters me out. So when I come in and click save here, it pulls up this segment, and now all of my reports are not from Pflugerville reports. They're showing everything that's not from Pflugerville. So my personal traffic is no longer in there. And then if I want to see my personal traffic, I could technically create a segment that's the opposite of that, or I could just turn this filter off and it shows me my traffic again. So that's kind of like a quick and easy way, especially because your data is already in there and there's no way to get it out. So there's no way to get it out. That's important with analytics. I can't go in here and delete anything because it messes with the integrity of the data if you can do that, right? Imagine if a marketer could change their Google Analytics data. They would saying all sorts of stuff. So that's why it's important that you can't change it. And since your visits are already in there, that's how you filter them out so you can actually see what's going on. And that's actually what I would do because you've probably got a ton of it already in there. So I hope that helps. Yes, it was about benchmark report. Thank you for that. So we covered that. And let's see, took a lot of notes. It's been awesome. Looking forward to the TCS videos so you can see the presentation. Irby, thank you. Shauna, thank you. Yes, perfect. Yeah, and those I do have that whole Google Tag Manager presentation and traffic and conversion. So if you guys bought the videos for that, you'll see that coming out too. Yeah, awesome. Well, very cool. I think I've got everything else. I'm going to talk for just another minute or two here because we are going on an hour and a half, and I apologize. I was hoping to keep it closer to an hour, but hopefully you found this useful. So now's the time to say thank you. This was great. I'm going to tell all my friends, and we're awesome. Or at the very least, you're going to subscribe to Workshop Wednesday if you're not already. So thank you. Appreciate it. It's nice when we go to close these out. Awesome. Thank you. Everyone's found a lot of value. This is great. Very cool. Very cool. And if you just moved up the notch of like that whole scale of 1 to 10 thing, if this webinar helped you move up from like a 2 to a 3 or 3 to a 4, that's awesome. Like just the one thing, because it is so simple to get overwhelmed with this stuff. Just one thing is all you want to do. Practice that one thing and just do this over and over and over again. And Angela's going to tell her friends and her boss, nice, go boss man. All right. Or boss woman, actually, I should say. So boss person. Thank you, Angela. Appreciate it. All right. I'm going to go ahead and take off for now. I appreciate it. Again, as things pop up, we'll be available on the list. So if you have questions, and take advantage, I didn't talk much about this, but take advantage of Workshop Wednesday. It is a free webinar that we do every single Wednesday. It's pure content. We don't get the replays out for those, but it is absolutely worth going to, and you get a lot of deep dive stuff. So last week we did a whole thing on user ID tracking. Tomorrow we're going to do something around some other topic, for the next Workshop Wednesday. So take advantage of that. All right. Thank you again. I'm going to sign off for the day. You all have a wonderful time and track the external sources of traffic. Use those UTMs. All right. Take care.